Hello everyone, my name is Manolis Svinaralakis, the founder and producer of Reality Crowd TV, and welcome to our first episode of the new year entitled Using Crowdfunding to Reconstruct Hope, How to Build a Better Breast. Today's guest is a great person, an amazing entrepreneur, has an amazing story to tell us all. But before we get to the key piece of our hangout today, I'd like to share with everyone watching a few ways to actually interact with both myself and our guest today. If you're watching through Google Hangouts on Air, we do have an active Q&A application. If you're watching through the technology embedded on our website, we'll also be checking in to see if there's any questions being asked there. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can also join in on the action by clicking on the Hangout to Join button. So with that being said, I'd like to actually introduce our guest for today. We have with us the co-founder and CEO of TeVido BioDevices, Laura Bosworth. And Laura, would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Manolis. I am super excited to be here. Laura Bosworth, CEO, co-founder. I actually am a retired former Fortune 50 executive, accidentally turned entrepreneur. It wasn't my intent, but when I found this technology, I felt like I had to bring it to life and bring it to bear and have an impact on people. So I have about 25 years experience, cross-functional, from manufacturing, engineering, product development, strategy, and alliances. So very broad background across a lot of different businesses. And now focused on making this happen.
That is great. Those experiences, I'm sure, are translating very nicely towards executing this this campaign, as well as the business that the campaign is supporting. So we'd actually love to hear more about TeVido, but before we actually ask you specifically to tell us more about the company itself, you have an amazing video that we would like to share for our audience. So I will share my screen, and we will move on with the video, and then we'll learn a lot more about your company this way.
Breast reconstruction on or after a lumpectomy or a double mastectomy is about to radically change.
It sure is.
I'm Laura Bosworth. TeVido BioDevices is an R&D company that's using 3D printing in a woman's own cells to create breast reconstruction products for those women who have survived breast cancer. We're very interested in breast cancer, and we asked some plastic surgeons what were some of the biggest problems. And when they started telling us what it was like to go through reconstruction, it was shocking, and it was surprising how arduous the journey can be and how often the results are not that good. In particular, women without the nipple feel psychological distress even long after the mound or the overall shape is completed. And we realized that we could give hope and restoration to women who have made it through cancer, they're survivors, to help them have a fulfilling, wonderful life. And that's where we start. But our technology has a potential to be used in other tissue engineering platforms. So there's visionary talk out there about creating whole livers so that somebody doesn't have to pass away for somebody to get a transplant. Our technology could be the cornerstone of delivering that kind of science fiction-like results. We've been involved in this competition for 5 months, and so much of it has been pretty incredible. The whole process, the mentors helped us think through our business plan and what we needed to do. And then now the Livestrong Foundation has brought in media and a variety of different people to help get exposure, the events and the people and the energy. It's an honor to be here.
That was excellent. You know, an amazing opportunity, an amazing technology that you're putting together, and so give us a little bit more information. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what 3D printing is potentially. So kind of tell us about your company, how it came to be, and also tell us about the technology that is allowing for you to help reconstruct tissue using 3D printing.
Absolutely. But first, I have to say thank you to the Livestrong Foundation. They're the ones who produced that video, and they ran a competition called the Big C, asking entrepreneurs to submit ideas, and there were 750 applicants globally, and we took the second prize position in that, so that was just fantastic, and so that's why we have such a high-quality video that we could share tonight. But what we're doing is we're using 3D printing, and 3D printing at a cellular level is interesting because for those in your audience who've seen 3D printers, they've maybe seen large machines, and you can make pretty big constructs out of those. But at the cellular level, we're talking 100 microns or a couple of hundred microns, so the third dimension is not that large. But that's exactly what we need. So we're layering cells on top of cells to be able to reproduce them. Now the real question is, well, Laura, what do you mean cells? Where are you getting these cells? The answer is they come from the woman herself. So we would be using fat cells and skin cells that are natural, that are from her, collected during a liposuction during one of her breast reconstruction procedures, and then we can build components to replace that she's missing after a mastectomy.
Wow, and so this to me is taking the whole 3D printing industry to a whole new level. When you can reconstruct an individual's own cell tissue directly from her own body, in order to help her with her self-esteem issues after such a devastating surgery as a breast reduction, it's really amazing that it's advanced to this level. And how did you as an ex-executive get into this business? How did you what inspired you to kind of start TeVido BioDevices?
Manolis, sometimes you just have to believe that there's powers out there, right? So I wasn't looking for this. I went back to the school, UT El Paso, where I got my engineering degree, and I was on their advisory board. And I said, look, I really want to help you with innovation and entrepreneurship. What can I do? Why don't you introduce me to some of your professors with the great ideas, and let me just be a business coach. And that's where I met Dr. Thomas Bolin, who is the inventor of using inkjet printing with living cells. In fact, he's often referred to as the grandfather of bioprinting. Now, I don't like that because we're sort of the same age, so I don't like him being called the grandfather. But nonetheless, it's great. And so he and I spent 6 or 7 months together kind of looking at the different business plan. I was working with him and some students. And at the end of that, I was so amazed by the possibilities. I mean, I just had no idea that this type of research was going on. And I turned to him and I said, Thomas, we have to start a company. We have to make this happen. And so that was how it is. It was fate. I feel like it found me. So.
Wow, it's incredible. Offering your services, your service as a coach, led you down an amazing new path into changing people's lives and literally transforming them. So that's amazing. And so the use case, of course, primarily it seems is for reconstruction of cell tissue around the breast. Is there other use cases? Like, what other problems can this potentially solve? You could start with the main problem it solves, and then kind of explain potentially some other use cases for this technology.
Exactly. So we're actually, one of the reasons we're starting with nipple reconstruction is that there is a large unmet need. Today, plastic surgeons, this is the very last step in breast reconstruction, but a plastic surgeon will go in and essentially make like a few little cuts on the nipple, on the shape of your breast, pinch that up, and kind of suture it together, and that creates the bump. Then you have to wait 3 or 4 months for it to heal, and they come back and do a tattoo. Unfortunately, the results, the projection flattens and the tattoos fade. These are like pinks, light tan colors. They don't last forever like the tattoos, the anchor that the sailors get, right? And So this unpredictability is really a problem. It can be 6 months to maybe a couple of years before it's completely gone. And that's why we're targeting that. And the nipple itself is relatively small, so about 1 centimeter to 1 centimeter thick. And from a tissue engineering, because as you said, this is very new, very radical technology. You've got to start small. And once we begin to expand the capability, the possibilities are, I wouldn't say endless, but they're potentially endless. We're working in the space with fat and skin, and today fat grafting is used in just numerous procedures. In fact, we estimate that there's about a $6 billion market for an opportunity around what we could do with this fat grafting. So in breast reconstruction, continuing with the contours and the shapes, because there's a lot of asymmetry when you're doing reconstruction. We could fill lumpectomies, which large lumpectomies are very disfiguring themselves. Then as you move outside of that, there are other reconstructive needs. So imagine a soldier has perhaps had a portion of his leg blown off and they're trying to reconstruct it for him. There could be real voids in the shape that he has. So you could use fat grafting to fill this. Scarring, burns, the list around reconstruction goes on and on. Perhaps even craniofacial repair. They're doing amazing work even in 3D printing with the bone structure, but you still have to do the skin and the fat and the other components of the shape of the face. And our technology can work in that space. And then finally, cosmetic is another space, and that's quite lucrative from a business perspective. But people are doing fat injections, in their wrinkles, in their hands. People are doing butt implants, small breast augmentation potentially. So that's looking at all that is where we get to about a $6 billion market size.
Wow, so there are multiple use cases for this technology, and it sounds like an amazing opportunity. And so tell us also, you've had some amazing success with certain programs that certain organizations are offering, and so you were actually given a grant from the National Science Foundation, which is amazing. However, those grants, the accounting for it is very technical. You can only use the funds for certain elements of this, and so tell us about the grant that you received, but also tell us why you can't use certain portions of that money for a very important element of the campaign, which is the patenting process.
Yeah, exactly. So these grants are amazing, and they're so important to startups, particularly in the medical field, because we have huge costs, right? If you look at the costs for bringing something to market, we have to go through clinical trials. Everybody has heard that it takes $1 billion to develop a drug. Well, the fantastic news is it won't take us $1 billion, but we're still on the order of tens of millions. It's probably going to be $40 million to bring this to market. That's before we even get any revenue, right? So it's quite a long haul. And without these programs that the federal government runs, the National Science Foundation, we have a grant from them, and we have one from the National Cancer Institute. Together, all the grants we've received, it's about $1 million, about $1.25 million, which seems fantastic, but again, we have a lot to go. And they are very specific. You cannot use it for any marketing purposes. You cannot use it for, there's a long list of thou shalt not use this money for. And so it's really our labs, our scientists, the equipment, purchasing of the cells. So those are super costly things, and that is how we are using the money. But as anybody who's tried to bring a company to market knows, you really have to protect your ideas, and that's what patents are all about. Patents protect them. And that's one of the not allowed items on our list. And also, anybody who knows anything about patents knows that they can be really, really expensive. Filing the initial patent, there's legal fees, there's defending them, there's filing them internationally. At this point, we have 2 filed patents. We've just had to select international countries to file them in. So the costs are really adding up quickly. And so that's why we're seeking $35,000 to kind of help us get those costs so we can keep moving and continue to have a chance at bringing this to market.
Wonderful. And so there actually is a question from the audience, and this is from John Jerkowitz. Thank you very much, John. His question is, if someone who was preparing for reconstructive breast surgery was interested in exploring this option, who would they or their doctor contact? Is this something that is brand new where they can contact you potentially to receive some sort of help, or who would they contact if they needed this type of a solution for their problem?
Yeah, John, I really want to thank you for that question because it's a good one. Right now we are working with as many plastic surgeons as we can for early feedback, but we are just in the prototype stage. And the way our regulatory, the FDA system works, we probably have about 2 years of scientific work before we have all the data that the FDA requires for us to then be ready to test this in humans. So we are not in human testing yet. Once we get approval to test in humans, it's likely another 2 years of clinical trials. Certainly at that case, at that point, if somebody's interested, we'll work through their doctors to get them into the clinical trial. But the bad news is, you know, we're talking two plus years before we might be at a point where this is even potentially an option in a clinical trial. 5 to 6 years before it's available on the market.
Excellent. Yeah, John, thank you for that question, and thank you, Laura, for that answer. We do have another question from, I believe, yes, it is from Sharuz Giuliani, and he asks a question. He's about to go to a National Science Foundation graft himself. How difficult was it to get the grant, and how long did it take you after you filled out your application?
It takes a long time, and it's really hard. So the National Science Foundation, we've actually gotten 2 grants. So the phase, when you're a small business, they have the Small Business Innovation Research, SBIR grants. And they're extremely competitive. I believe when you talk to these guys, the kind of the win rate, so your chance of success is 5%. So they're very, very hard to get. And typically what you do, like on our first grant, we submitted it in June, and we learned in December that we had received it. At that point, we had already submitted multiple grants in other rounds and not gotten them, though. So we probably had 1.5 to 2 years of trying before we finally got one. We did make some changes into our proposals, even around the business plan, which then strengthened them. And we now have a phase 2, which is the much larger grant, $750,000. The first one's $150,000. And the phase 2 we submitted in January and did not get notification until September, so 9 months. And unfortunately, you know, someone like us, a company like us, we don't yet have angel investors who have come in because we're deemed a little bit too early. So this is all our money, and the ability to wait around for 9 months, most companies can't do that. So that's the downside of these grants. The upside is it's non-dilutive money, and it gives incredible value. And now that we are in with the National Science Foundation, right now with a phase 2, if we raise $1 million in investment, they will match us $500,000. So it gets very exciting once you're in, but getting in is really hard.
Great, great response and a great question, Sharuz. We really appreciate that. And so at this time, so we now know why you turned to the crowdfunding process. Very clear that the grant process has certain limitations. And so what can we do to help? What are you asking your friends, followers, and supporters, and anyone watching today? What would you ask that you need help on? And maybe you could kind of give us a little taste of what your campaign has been so far, and what some statistics you've noticed.
Yeah, so we are trying to raise $35,000, as I said. The fantastic news is just today we announced that we have a contributor who wants to make a match. So we've just announced a $2,500 match. So if we can raise another $2,500 quickly, then they're going to put that extra amount in. This is a fabulous contributor who, to be honest with you, has already made a very large contribution. So when they came back to make another one, that was really fantastic. So of course I would ask you to, contribute a little bit. That would be wonderful. And Manolis, the thing about this is I think a lot of times people don't contribute because they don't think they have enough. They think, oh, if I don't do $100, it's not meaningful. But that's simply not true. I like to tell people there's 2.8 million breast cancer survivors in the United States alone. If I could get $1 for every one of them, 2.8 million, that with my grants, I'd be ready for clinical trials. So even a dollar matters. But the challenge is, how do you get the word out to 2.8 million people? I mean, that's what's really, really hard about crowdfunding. And I think what everybody who thinks about crowdfunding under anticipates how difficult it will be. So make a small contribution, and then the other thing I would ask you is tell 10 people that that you think might donate $10. So we're running kind of a 10 for 10 message right now. Emails, contact the 10 people directly, and then share with your whole network on Facebook, Twitter, whatever other social media that you might have. That's how we get it out.
Absolutely, and that is huge news. The matching contributor $2,500. So any dollar that is donated to you from now until the end of the campaign. Which how many days left do you have in your campaign?
We have 13 days left in the campaign.
So between now and 13 days from now, any dollar spent will be matched up to $2,500. And who knows? Maybe this gentleman will come back and say, "We'll give you some more matching too." You never know if it happens quick enough.
I'm working on some other people, hoping there'll be a few others that'll come in on a match too. Oh, well, I was going to say one of the things, I know a lot of the viewers are very interested in crowdfunding as a practice, and one of the things that's a challenge for people to think through is, some of the most successful crowdfunding is they have a product, right? So people are really just buying an advanced version of a product. So you already know what it is. It's an amazing way to find out, is there really demand for your product? For us, it's more of a cause, almost like a nonprofit or something of that nature. We don't have a product. As John asked, we won't have a product for 5 or 6 years. What we're really asking people to contribute to is the vision of making a difference in these women's lives. And so I had not been, I'm not going to have revenue for 5 or 7 years, so I've not been building up a customer base or doing any of that sort of thing. And so when you crowdfund, really thinking about what is your contact network and how are you going to reach enough people, I think that's the shortfall that most folks don't really know how much work it takes to do that. And we were talking some numbers, and I was just thinking to myself, if anybody listening is thinking about crowdfunding, you want to take your goal, and let's say it's $25,000, because that's about what I have left to raise. And there's a bunch of statistics you can read about what the average gift is. In general, the average gift is about $25. For us, the average gift has been about $100, so that changed things a little bit, but let's go with 25. Well, then that means you need 1,000 donors. So think to yourself, where are you going to get them? And what you can see is on the Indiegogo or Kickstarter or any of the other campaigns, there's kind of a normal conversion rate that if you can get people to your page, then 1.5% to 3% will actually contribute. So then you calculate that, and that says, oh my gosh, that means I need 50,000 people to come to my Indiegogo site. Wow, how are you going to get that? And then you start thinking, well, if I have 100,000 Twitter followers, what's the conversion? How many Twitter followers actually will click on a link? again, probably it's something of the order of 1.5% of people, of your followers, actually click. So that would mean you need 3 million, email or social media reach to be able to potentially raise $25,000. So, and really we've thought about that, and it was one of the things that we recognize as a challenge for us is that I had not been building up a customer base. So that's really where your viewers can help us, get that reach, help get the word out.
Absolutely, and right now too, actually, there's multiple ways to help directly from Indiegogo, whether you contribute or not, which we hope you do. The Indiegogo link has been posted on the event description. It's posted on my website. It's posted in the event discussion areas, and so you can literally share across all your social networks. You can share via email, and what you just mentioned, Laura, though, is absolutely right. But you have found that innovative way to ultimately reduce the number of people needing to come because you have that matching gift principle. Right. That tactic right there, if you could find a few people who are willing to match, it hugely eliminates the reach that is needed because you now have people who are willing to match dollar for dollar, and that's a unique strategy that I think works perfect in your situation, in the medical situation, in the nonprofit cause situation. That really works well, and actually here is another question from our good friend John. John says, one of my angels asked, what should they do if they wanted to invest or contribute? So that sounds pretty awesome.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, how can someone contact you directly, Laura? Because maybe this is more of a personal question before the contribution. So if someone wanted to contact you directly and invest or contribute, what is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, they can absolutely reach me on my direct email, which is Bosworth, BOSWORTH, at TeVidoBioDevices.com. And we are beginning to work on putting together an investment package. We're thinking, kind of mid to late spring is when we're going to be out with that. So it would be excellent timing for people interested, accredited investors, to contact us. That would be fantastic, John. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, John. Thank you for that. And Laura, I also encourage you after the show to also put your information to contact you on the Google Plus event page.
Okay, great idea.
Yeah, and also on the YouTube comment section too, if anyone wanted to contact you. So, John, again, thank you so much for that. We are near the end of our allotted time, but let me just double check to see if there's any other questions. All right. And oh yes, there is a good comment here by our good friend Sharuz as well. So Sharuz asks, is the Jobs Act, the Title II and also Title III, the different sections of the Equity Crowdfunding Jobs Act, could that be applicable here? And the answer is yes, Sharuz. Mm-hmm. Right now, the reason why Laura mentioned accredited investors is because currently it's only individuals who make $200,000 a year or are worth $1 million in net worth, excluding their personal residence. Only the wealthy individuals using that form of the Jobs Act, which is the Equity Crowdfunding Act, only those people are allowed to invest at present. What we're hoping and what everyone's hoping is that Title III, which is anyone regardless of income will be able to invest in a private company, that will soon pass on the federal level, but there also is movements happening in individual states, and I think Texas, where you're based, Laura, just passed what is known as the intrastate or within the state unaccredited investor law. Is that right?
That's my understanding, and I think that is just very, very new, so I have not yet caught up on that. But what that would mean is the investors would have to come from Texas. They have to live in Texas, so nobody else could be part of that. In fact, I think I made an introduction to Manolis with one of the guys who's running one of those, so that he can help. You can bring that to your audience too.
Absolutely, and thank you for that introduction. But yes, Sharuz, thank you for reminding us of that. Even though the federal law right now, and I'm sorry to keep throwing around Title III because that doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's just like, what the heck is that? But the part of this law that will allow for anyone to invest in a private company regardless of income will eventually be passed on the federal level. There's still delays on that end. But luckily, state by state, certain legislatures are passing rules that allow for anyone within the state and any startups within the state to raise money from anyone regardless of income. So that was a good reminder, Sharuz, that is becoming an option, but it is still very much new, even in that sense of the word, where there's not much activity happening currently, even in that option. So thank you for that, Sharuz. So just to wrap up, we also want to announce this is the first episode of the new year for Reality Crowd TV, and a lot of changes are happening this year. If many of you have visited our website, realitycrowdtv.com, we've announced that we're hosting a virtual crowdfunding summit from November 30th to December 18th, 2015. You might be thinking to yourself, Manolis, why are you planning 11 months ahead for this, huge virtual crowdfunding summit? Well, the summit will be 3 weeks long, 9 panels per day, 150 different panels from 3 different segments of the crowdfunding industry. Whether it's equity crowdfunding you're interested in, that'll be week 1. Rewards crowdfunding will be week 2. And week 3 will be a practical how to do crowdfunding in a crowdfunding boot camp. And so we're happy to announce that Laura will be one of the speakers. We're going to be having case studies throughout the event, and Laura will be one of the speakers to share her experiences, very much like she shared with us today, but on a more detailed level and through an hour-long session instead of a 30-minute session. And so if anyone is interested in learning more about it, please visit realitycrowdtv.com, and you will see a lot of information on the virtual crowdfunding summit. And Laura, we're honored to have you on our show, and we're honored to have you be a speaker in the virtual summit as well.
Well, thank you so much. It's fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it, and I really appreciate the participation and the questions. So thanks.
You got it. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for watching us this evening. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Without you in the audience, we wouldn't be doing what we do week in and week out. So we're eternally grateful for you. And before we actually sign off, Laura, is there any last words you'd like to say to the audience?
Just want to let them know that we're grateful for anything and everything they can do. Not everybody can make a contribution, but really getting the word out, as I described what these numbers mean. We have to reach 3 million people, and the only way we can do that is through folks like the viewers here. So, yeah, so that's it.
Great. Well, Laura, once again, we will be supporting you for the remaining 13 days you have left. We wish you amazing success in these 13 days and for the years to come that you will be building this wonderful technology. And again, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And an audience, until next time, dream it, believe it, achieve it. Bye, Laura.
Bye.